All right, let's jump right into this explainer and unpack the real, data-driven impact of generative AI on our workforce. We really want to see what is actually happening behind all those flashy headlines. Because if you've been scrolling through the news lately, you might think the future of work is just this endless parade of algorithms completely replacing human beings. But the data tells a vastly different and honestly far more fascinating story. So, here's the big question we really need to ask right off the bat to challenge this prevailing corporate myth. The myth that firing workers to fund artificial intelligence is just going to infinitely scale profits. We've all seen major tech companies lay off thousands of workers, heavily implying that AI is just going to pick up the slack. But we really have to ask, is this strategy actually working out for these companies, or are they just hollowing out their own foundations?
Here's a quick roadmap for today's explainer. First up, the AI layoff illusion. 2. Automation versus augmentation. 3. The skills polarization. 4. The judgment deficit. And finally, number 5, people amplification.
Okay, let's dive into part 1, the AI layoff illusion.
Let's expose the startling reality behind this recent wave of corporate layoffs. Get this, a massive recent Gartner study looked at global executives at billion-dollar companies, and it reveals that a staggering 80% of them, 80%, actually trimmed their human staff specifically to invest in AI or autonomous tech. They literally slashed their headcounts just to free up the cash they needed to buy into the promise of automation.
But wow, here is the plot twist. Those same executives, the ones who slashed staffs to buy AI, they are seeing zero detectable financial returns compared to the leaders who actually held on to their employees. They sacrificed all that valuable institutional knowledge, totally killed employee goodwill, and essentially did it for nothing. According to the research, a lot of these executives frankly had no idea if AI would even generate any benefits. They were just blindly buying into the hype.
Which brings us to part 2, automation versus augmentation.
You're probably wondering, why is this layoff strategy backfiring so terribly? Well, to understand this, we've got to talk about this absolutely fascinating December 2024 working paper out of Harvard Business School. The researchers analyzed a near-universe dataset of U.S. job postings. We are literally talking about millions of data points here to figure out exactly how generative AI is reshaping what employers are looking for.
And the researchers brilliantly break work down into 2 distinct categories. First, you have automation-prone jobs. This is where generative AI can pretty much step in and entirely replace the human, usually because the tasks are super routine and easy to codify. But then you have augmentation-prone jobs. These are super interesting because they involve a mix of tasks. Sure, AI can handle the routine bits, but human judgment, creativity, and actual problem-solving are strictly required to oversee and interact with whatever the AI spits out.
The contrasting data here is just wild. Right after ChatGPT hit the scene, firm demand for those automation-prone jobs dropped by 17% per quarter. But demand for augmentation-prone jobs, it actually surged by 22%. Because AI takes over the boring routine tasks in these roles, the human workers become incredibly productive. Firms realize this, and they actively want to hire more of them, not fewer. So AI isn't just killing jobs across the board, it's actively creating this immense demand for a very specific type of human-AI collaboration.
Let's move to part 3, the skills polarization.
This whole divergence in job demand shows us a massive shift in the exact skills employers are desperately hunting for right now. It essentially highlights the de-skilling of automation jobs versus the upskilling of augmentation jobs. For automation-prone jobs, the demand for AI-exposed skills plummeted by 24%. Why? Well, because the AI just does the task now. The human literally doesn't need the skill anymore. The total number of required skills drops, and new skills just stagnate. But for augmentation-prone jobs, demand for AI-exposed skills jumped by 15%. Workers in these roles have to acquire entirely new abilities to manage, validate, and collaborate with the AI. The total complexity of their jobs is going up, and exciting new skills are emerging all the time.
Now for part 4, the judgment deficit.
Let's ground all this abstract data in the real world for a second. Think about the legal profession. It's a perfect example of why the augmentation path completely wins out over pure automation. There's this really insightful piece from the New York State Bar Association that offers a vital distinction. They define operational intelligence as the ability to execute processes, recognize patterns, and manage risk at incredible scale and speed. Historically, lawyers build a ton of hours doing exactly this. But let's be honest, this is precisely what generative AI does better, faster, and way cheaper than we ever could.
But, and this is absolutely crucial, they contrast that operational intelligence with wisdom. Wisdom is that irreplaceable, fundamentally human capacity to make the genuinely hard choices, to own the unpredictable consequences of a decision, and to apply moral clarity when rules conflict. You simply cannot outsource accountability to a chatbot. When the data is incomplete or when human values collide, our wisdom is literally the only thing that provides legitimacy.
Think about it. For decades, professions like law used structural scaffolding as a defense mechanism. They used precedent, heavy process, and long delays to mimic machine logic, focusing on scale and speed, while actually avoiding real human accountability. But AI is completely shattering these barriers right now. It compresses precedent into seconds and wipes out delay entirely. Basically, AI removes the scaffolding the professionals used to hide behind.
This hard-hitting quote from Libby Clark really hits the nail on the head. She points out that as AI takes over the operational intelligence, the pattern matching and the endless process execution, a human's cultivated judgment actually becomes the ultimate limiting factor. The future absolutely belongs to professionals who can make decisions under pressure and take real responsibility without needing procedural cover. Generative AI concentrates responsibility. It doesn't eliminate it.
And that brings us to our final section, Part 5, People Amplification.
So how do businesses actually navigate this transition practically? Let's loop back to that Gartner study from the start of the explainer. The absolute clearest takeaway is that the most successful strategy is what they're calling people amplification. The companies that are actually seeing significant business gains are the ones handing their employees AI tools to boost their efficiency, rather than trying to just replace them outright. They are leaning heavily into the augmentation path.
But we've still got a long way to go on actual adoption. Surprisingly, that same research shows that 54% of employees, more than half, are currently avoiding using their own company's in-house AI tools. A lot of the time, this is just a lack of proper training or simply this lingering fear that the tool is only there to eventually replace them. And the reality is, you can't get that 22% surge in augmentation productivity if your workforce is literally too afraid to touch the technology.
To fix this, leaders have got to completely shift their mindset. They need to become system architects. You can't just throw a shiny piece of technology at your team and hope for the best. You have to actively design workflows that protect and deeply reward human deliberation, sound judgment, and ethical stewardship. You use the AI for the operational intelligence for sure, but you intentionally design your business to elevate human wisdom.
So I'll leave you with this final provocative thought to chew on when you evaluate your own workplace. In the massive rush to adopt generative AI, which path are you truly investing in? Are you just chasing this mirage of automated scale, or are you actively amplifying the irreplaceable wisdom of your people? Because the data is crystal clear on which path actually leads to success. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and I'll see you next time.